Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 19th Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The first thing I wanted to do before I got going with what we have on the agenda tonight is just to thank Panda for filling in. Our usual videographer, Fred Cartier, is under the weather. He's done a great job for years, and we wish him get well soon. Fred, we're thinking about you. And in the meantime, Panda has taken over the duties for Fred. But I do want to acknowledge Fred. He's been doing the videography stuff for years and has done a great job. So with that, the meeting minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at the meeting minutes for May 15th, 2019?
Yes.
Okay, any concerns, questions, corrections?
My corrections were already made.
That's what I thought. All right, with that, I'll make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes for May 15th, 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, carried. New business. I understand that the Solon matter has been withdrawn.
Yes.
Okay. So the only other new piece of business is the Stout application. Is there somebody here for the Stout application?
Yes,
Okay.
that's Mr. Stout walking in.
It was Mr. Stout, okay. Perfect timing. So you know what to do. You've been here before. So just go up to the microphone and let us know what you want to do, what you're proposing, and if I have some questions for you, and we'll see if we can accept the application.
I made the application for several variances for this particular piece of property. I submitted an application. The zoning enforcement officer did determine that there are several conditions that will not be met based on the way the property is situated. It is in a 10-acre zone, and there are not 10 acres total for this property. It is bisected by the village line, so there's some of the land is in the town, some of the land is in the village. We do have a piece of property that's actually separated also from this piece that you see on your map that belongs to Paul Matthews is the owner of the property. Henry Stout is the potential purchaser of the property. And there's another like 3-acre lot that's north of the land that you see on your map that's called Phoenix Development that's totally in wetlands. So it's really not developable. So it will, remain forever open. So the application that we're making for the variances have to do with side yard setback, lot width, lot area, and frontage. And the reason that I think that we're not really asking for anything out of the ordinary here is an existing lot of record with certain land in the town, certain land in the village. That's not going to change. The land that's in the town will only be the land that's in the town. The land that's in the village will only be the land that's in the village. So I guess the biggest variance we're seeking is the side yard setback due to the long narrowness of the property, the way it just is, and where Mr. Stout would like to build a home in the future. And I think you have, I think I submitted a copy of the drawing that shows the proposed house and septic area with the topography on it. That the house site, in order to be outside of the wetlands and outside of the, well, it would be partly in the adjacent area, but he's worked with the DEC and they would be able to issue a permit to be partially in the adjacent area of the wetlands. But the septic would be entirely outside of the adjacent area. The DEC would not approve anything that's going to be a septic in an adjacent area. But the house site would be tucked up in the far rear southerly corner of the lot. And that's where it borders village land. And the village, the lot that borders it in the village, all the improvements and the house site for that lot are far away from the particular adjacent lot line where Mr. Stout is proposing his development. So we are proposing several variances. They may look like they're large variances, but they really work with the land. This is in order for him to be able to use this particular piece of land, this is what we're proposing.
Murray, the total acreage in Lot 1 is 3.57 acres.
The total acreage in the land that he owns, the land that Mr. Matthews owns south of Phoenix Development would be the parcel A plus the remaining land. I apologize, I only have the survey map, I don't have the special lot by location map. So it would be 3.570 plus 0.765.
Is
So
that-
the 0.765 is what's in the village. And it's in-
0.765.
Right, and then the parcel A is 3.570. And the lot that's north of Phoenix Development is, I can pull it out of my folder, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
If I could interject one thing, just for your information. We have been through an extensive process with DEC, and the exact location, size of the house, and septic, driveway, everything is, there is no other option. It is
Have they
the
done
only
a
option.
review?
Was that?
Have they done a review of the
They
project?
have done a review.
And have you
they-
gotten any kind of approval or?
I've gotten a verbal approval. It's an extended process, but I've been through 2 revisions, and I have gotten a verbal approval that, by all appearances, as goes through the process at this point, that this specific plan would. We also have application into the Board of Health, which also looks like.
All that information would be helpful.
That's what I said, I believe you have it on the, this plan that was provided that was from, that had the topography on it, it showed the proposed house site.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I don't see the
Okay.
proposed house site.
Then I apologize, I thought I had.
Yeah, that's, I was asking Catherine, because I couldn't figure it out ahead of the.
I thought I had brought everything.
Okay, so we'd like to get that submitted to see where it is, but
Certainly.
And
any,
if you have anything from Board of Health as well, that we can,
The Board of Health is, the application was submitted. We received their comments. The engineer feels that the comments are not insurmountable. So again, both of those, DEC and Board of Health, are well in process. Kind of not, it's just it's a lengthy process in both. The DEC, the last communication was about a month ago on our second submission of our second revision, and they said minimum 3 months to review. And the Board of Health, the engineer is working on, addressing each of those points, but with a 3-month window with DEC, he hasn't put that on the fast track.
well, again, any information you submit and you receive from them would be helpful for our consideration here. So, because this is going to take a little bit of time too.
Of course.
Yeah, we understand that.
Right, and having a map, yeah, the site plan would be helpful, so if you can submit that. Sounds like you have it.
I apologize, I thought I had submitted it.
have you been before any discussions with the town planning board?
We spoke to the chairman of the planning board. His comment, just a little more history on this particular property. Mr. Matthews did a boundary line alteration that created the parcel A that you see on your map that was going to be conveyed to Sarukis, Vanacoyotis, and another Sarukis, I think. I forget. There's two of one, and 2 Sarukises and 1 Vanacoyotis. They're the owners of the Ever Ready Diner that is on Route 9. So they were going to purchase parcel A and combine it to their adjacent lands to become part and parcel, so that they would have frontage on both Route 9 and Montgomery Street. Of course, the diner burned down. They had no use for this additional land, since they're not really doing much with the diner, so they opted not to purchase it. The map had already been filed because we were, getting ready to convey the land. Mr. Matthews was getting ready to convey the land to the Sarukises. And so when we talked to Mike Trimble, he suggested that since there's already a map on file with parcel A on it, coming to a subdivision as opposed to a lot line alteration, we would clear up a few things. Number one, if it became a subdivision, there would be a recreation fee paid to the town, that it would, become a separate parcel instead of a adjacent, a conjoined parcel. So he did not see any big problems when we spoke to him, and he was the only person at the meeting with myself and Mr. Stout. He thought it was a good thing.
Can you, I'm just So this is just from parcel access. I just want to explain, so this is the line
That's
between
the
the town
village
and
town
the village.
line, yeah.
So what?
This is the village piece.
Yeah, that's going to stay the village piece?
Right, that would stay in the village. This
Okay.
would be the town piece, and they also, Mr. Matthews also owns that. It says 1 acre, but it's 1.5 acres roughly, I can remember.
So is this being combined?
No, this land is separate. This is fee ownership of a company called Phoenix
Okay,
Development, which is, I believe, a subsidiary of Central Hudson, because you do have power lines that come through here. And so that piece belongs to, that's fee ownership of Phoenix Development, say it's Central Hudson. So this piece is, if you put on your wetland, is totally in the wetlands.
Yeah.
This one is a lot in the
and
wetlands.
this is what will be the configuration? It's kind of like you're not really changing what the...
We're not changing at all the lot lines that are within the town. Other people would like to.
Sure, this is just off of parcel
Parcel
access.
access.
So this line, this blue line is the village, the town, this is the town of Rhinebeck, this is the village of Rhinebeck.
Right.
So this is what the current lot
Looks
is
like,
in the town.
yeah. And that would.
This is the current lot.
That's correct.
Yes.
But this isn't a question about lot line changes, this is about setbacks.
It's
Well,
about
lot area.
we'd also like to go to the town planning board, the village planning board, to subdivide the land that's in the village from the land that's in the town, because they are in one deed currently.
They're in
So
one deed, but they should be in two tax maps.
they are in two tax maps.
So,
That does not necessitate, the former zoning enforcement officer would have agreed with you and said that was a natural subdivision. The current zoning enforcement officer said it's not a subdivision, and she also said we needed to go for a use variance, which I didn't understand. Because we're looking for area reductions, not any change in use. It's a residential property.
Situation, John.
But the subdivision that you're talking about, would that result in 2 buildable lots?
Yes.
And could
One in the
and how-
town, one
could
in
you
the
point
village.
And
that out here?
how big is the other lot?
The other lot is this triangle.
Let's try it.
So this is the
That's-
village line.
that's-
That's village.
Okay, I guess it's,
Oh, okay.
and
So this triangle,
is in the village, would be,
and that would be a buildable, you want that to be a buildable lot?
And
yes.
it's under an acre.
It's under an acre, but it's also, what, 20,000 square foot zoning, I think.
In the village.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally.
Actually, it's 3/4 of an acre, 0.765.
It's actually a big lot for the village.
Yeah, it's bigger than.
All right, so this is the
lot.
Is
village.
that going to be on village sewer?
It would, I suppose.
I don't know, it'll be on village water.
No, it would
It has to
probably have its own.
Board of Health, its own septic system, but it would be village water.
And on the remaining lands here,
Mhm.
that would be one lot?
That's correct.
And is there a house here now?
No.
And what was the house you were referring to?
The house site where Mr. Stout would like to build is roughly in this area. The house I was referring to
The
on this
only drive spot,
Pasquale and
right?
Bellini,
Correct.
their
And
house
highway.
is up here.
So there's
It's
no-
up off
There's no
of
house here now. And
Correct.
who owns all this land right
Paul
now?
Matthews.
And is this part of a contract, he's selling it to someone?
That would be.
That would be Mr. Stout. So,
Okay.
yeah, we have the paperwork that
And it's
says.
Yeah, did you
Subject
get
to-
the authorization
So,
done?
Yes.
so you're
Okay.
looking for this to be one lot, and all of this would be the rest?
Correct.
So
Okay.
would you be joining this part to this?
No,
think they're
we're
separated.
separating those.
So this is the
Right
whole
now,
lot.
Right.
the deed goes around the entire boundary of the village and town parcels.
but
You're
they are-
separating this from this? You want
Separating
to?
this.
We'd like
No,
the
I
town,
understand,
we'd like the
right.
town parcel to
And
be
this is, so
independent
there's
from the
two,
village.
one, two.
Just to be
Got it.
clear,
Yes.
that should be a deed
These
issue.
are,
You should be getting, or the owner should be getting 2 tax bills, one from the village, one from the
he
town.
actually gets three.
Okay,
One
3.
from the village, one from the town for this parcel, one for the town on the other side of Phoenix Development. So, but a tax parcel.
That's
is-
irrelevant to this.
Except that it's
Right.
all 3 parcels are being sold to all 3 tax numbers parcels were
Right,
being.
but that third lot is relevant to what's in front of us?
It's not relevant to the variances, no. It's just, I'm pointing it out that it's a lot that will never be developed that could be considered like open space.
So, this gentleman is also buying this lot?
No, that belongs to Central Hudson. Phoenix Development, I believe, was a subsidiary of Central Hudson, and there's a power line that goes through there. North of this, if you look on the tax maps, I don't know if you can make that even bigger. So there's a 1.5 acre parcel up here. Then there's Central Hudson, then there's this lot, and then there's the village parcel.
It's such a strange configuration.
Yes.
Is this going to be a back driveway to the restaurant?
No, that's why I said the restaurant is never going to buy it. The restaurant stopped negotiations when their building burned down.
Right, but the parcel A had already been completed by that point.
Right,
And
but it was
to
never,
file
it was
that.
never deeded. It would not, it's not, and that's why Mike thinks this would be a good idea, because that will eliminate the map, that would supersede the map that's on file that shows it as a lot line alteration, and would then create it as a separate parcel.
And where was there a lot line adjustment?
The land that belonged to, that still belongs to Vanaciotis, Sarukas, and
Okay.
Sarukas, goes out to Route 9.
Right.
This parcel, just parcel A, which is the one we're calling the town lot, was supposed to be deeded to
Right,
those people, and then this would become one lot by consolidation.
right,
So their diner burned down.
right.
They said, we're not gonna invest any more money.
Right, but you
in these
mentioned the property
properties."
had a lot line adjustment?
That was this. That was the map with parcel A to be combined with adjacent land.
It was going,
This was
So there was no adjustment?
It was not deeded. The map was filed. It was filed in July of 2014.
Did some board approve,
The town of Rhinebeck Planning Board approved the lot line alteration.
so it's done?
No, the ability to convey the land to Sarukas is there, but the land was never conveyed. The land can only be conveyed by deed.
I thought the lot line adjustment
Yes,
was a land line adjustment. That's what I thought it
It gives
was.
you the ability to change the line, but since Mr. Matthews
Well,
never...
how would we know if someone changed the line or didn't change the
You'd
line?
have to find out if the deed was on file. So Mr. Matthews did not convey to Sarukas a deed stating, I am now selling to you 3.570 acres identified as parcel A on file map 12481.
So this person in perpetuity has the right to?
No, they have no rights because they didn't buy it. They didn't acquire the land. They got the town to approve the lot line alteration. The town says, yes, we approve the concept. Now you have to finalize it by going through deed. Because the only way to convey land is a deed. You can't convey land through a file map.
And the variances, the 4 variances, do they apply to, I'll call it parcel A?
Yes.
They don't apply?
No, because it's a village parcel. And actually, there are no variances.
There's no rear yard, there's no front yard, there's no...
For the village parcel,
Right.
I think it's a 10-foot side yard setback, because you really don't have a rear back. You've got a side yard here and a side yard here. Yeah, I think the side yard setbacks are 10 feet in the village. Actually, I know that they're 10 feet, because that's what I was saying about this lot. He's asking for a 10-foot side yard setback here, so he can put his house up in this area. And I know
For
that
parcel A.
for parcel A. But that's
Are you
because,
placing a house here that we could look at? A
um,
footprint?
Yeah, Marie's going to
You
supply
have-
us with that.
Hold on, I just
Well, for
want-
parcel A.
I'd like to just clarify a couple things. The request for the side yard setback on the town lot is a request that matches the side yard setback in a village lot. It's different between the village and the town, of course, you know that. The reason for that is that came from DEC. There's so many moving parts, it's like a puzzle. And from my point of view, the first piece to put in place in that puzzle, no disrespect, was to go to DEC and see whether it was even possible from their point of view. And in a prior conversation with one gentleman that I met with Marie, I was told that, yes, DEC would be the lead agency as far as this is concerned. So,
And what is their point of view? Why do they want that side yard setback?
because it allows me to move the building that much, it's a 50-foot would be, if I was on the town's 50-foot side yard setback, is it 50?
yeah, probably 10.
On the side. That would put me into,
The what?
Richard, this is the wetlands, and this is
Correct.
their 100-foot buffer.
so if I go to the 10, then it's basically what we had to show them was that we were doing everything conceivably possible to not encroach on the wetland. And then we had to make reasonable decisions about the other regulations including a setback. So we thought perhaps if we went with the 10, considering that ultimately, you know, I may own that parcel, but right now, Mr. Matthews owns it with his permission. He doesn't have an objection to that 10-foot side yard setback. That allowed us to present to the DEC a plan which they felt was reasonable. And it you know, their intention is not to render a parcel useless. You know, so they said, you have to show us that you've done everything possible to avoid our wetland. So then we went to work with my engineer, and we do have a site plan which will be presented. I apologize that it's not here. And this is what we landed on, and this was a compromise, this 10-foot setback. So that then went to Marie, and she said we need to get that variance for that, to get that 10-foot setback within the town. So there's a lot of different elements to this, specifically speaking to that 10-foot. That's the rationale for it, is that it allowed us to make a presentation to the DEC that they've indicated is acceptable.
Have the wetland boundaries been delineated
Yes.
as part of your site plan?
Delineated and located, they're on the topographic survey.
Okay. Is the whole property in the buffer?
No,
No.
that's the thing. It would have been dead in the water if not for one small section. The majority of the house and the entire septic system are outside the buffer.
This is the mapping from parcel access,
This
which is
is
not
also
always.
the-
Yeah, we have the wetland and the,
Yeah, so you see this right here? That's the only high and dry part of this entire nearly 4
So
acres.
this is the wetland buffer boundary or the
Correct.
wetland boundary?
no, the buffer, the 100-foot adjacent
So
area.
100 foot, the wetland is down here,
Right.
but 100 feet back from that. And there's just enough room for us to fit a 30 by 60 foot house in
Okay.
here and a septic system here. Hello, this is my wife, Jen.
Hi. Who did the delineation?
Michael Nolicki. Oh, no, DEC.
The delineation of the wetland.
It's
Yeah,
on
that
here.
was-
It's
That was
on-
Kelly.
Kelly McKean.
McKean, yeah.
Okay.
She came out, I met her. I mean, it's been to this point of arriving here, how long have we been at this? Marie? I mean, you know, and it's fine, you know, we're not, you know, we realize it's gonna take time. You
Yeah,
know,
we
but
can see that
hoping-
site plan map with all the
Yeah, and
wetland buffer, the site.
I apologize, because the
Okay.
engineer did
Okay.
send it to me, and I must not have printed it out.
The homework in that regard is done.
Who's the engineer?
He's from
Richard Roth.
Richard Roth.
And he also designed the septic system. We've had the site visit with the Board of Health, test holes with PERC. They analyzed the soils. A little bit of historic reference on the property. The property is a fill, which is another reason why DEC felt that this area, we had hoped to build farther back on the property, which they said no, because they preferred that we build on towards it because it's an already disturbed area. The Board of Health, it was disturbed decades ago, so the Board of Health, the soils have had time to settle, so the Board of Health accepted the soils. I mean, we're threading the eye of a needle. And then it came down to, you know, the next step was to come, we wanted to do all that homework before we ever came here. And again, we will get you the detailed site plans and all of that.
Yeah, I can have it here tomorrow.
How does the board feel as far as having enough information to consider this application?
I just had one more question. On the remaining parcel, is that all your wetlands, or are they hoping to put a house there also?
The village or the town?
The owner of parcel A, if the triangle is subdivided off, and you can put a house on that,
On the village side,
yeah, correct.
yes.
On the other side, is that going to be a buildable lot also?
At the end of the day, we do hope that at some point, you know, if we chose to put a cottage or something on the village side, that we would have the option of doing so. But our intention right now is to build a residence on the town lot.
Yeah, the parcel A is the part that's before this board for the variances. We don't need variances for the village side because it conforms. It's the parcel A in the town that we're looking for the variances.
The other, just,
But the purpose of the subdivision is not have two parcels, one you could build a house on and one you don't.
Correct.
You
Right
don't-
now,
You want to be
according,
able to build a house on both.
he would like to be able to build a house on each, on parcel A and the village parcel.
But the village is out of our purview.
I think the other thing I'll say is, I mean, there's not an immediate intention to do so. It's a complicated property, and it's just kind of from a common sense point of view, to me, it makes sense that if that's a village lot and that's a town lot, that they're deeded accordingly.
And I know that the zoning enforcement officer said it doesn't have any bearing here, but both the village parcel and the town parcel and the parcel north of the power lines are all being taxed as building lots. So the assessors believe that they are considered building lots, but as I say, I know that doesn't have any weight with what we're doing here. I'm just
So
mentioning
it's
it in
good for
passing.
the assessor
Information.
anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The location, now you've located, you noted where the house is going to be on the town lot. Has it been staked, or is it just on the,
It's just on the engineering drawings.
okay.
I mean,
We could-
it was laid out, but it's not officially I mean, I figure we're still quite a ways from
Right, but at some point in time, if we do go and do a site inspection, it's always good to have, that's down the road,
Yep.
but
But that can be done
That
out.
would be-
that's
that would be no
helpful,
problem.
just so we can see where it is.
Yeah, be happy to do so. I hope we get to that point.
And so Marie, is there a reason that you aren't also simultaneously going before the planning board for the site plan and the subdivision at the same time?
We actually, as I said, we talked to Michael Trimble about that, and they said we could do that. I have submitted the application, I've submitted the wetlands permit application,
Okay.
but they were waiting to see basically what happened with the zoning board before they decided to proceed.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, that application has been submitted.
All right, how does the board feel about the amount of information we have? We do want to get the site plan, obviously.
Absolutely.
But subject to that, do you feel that we have enough information to consider the application? Well, personally, I do, but...
If you want me to, I can run up to my office and
Not a problem.
and bring it back tonight.
We'd accept it, I'd make the application, the motion to accept it, subject to you
Okay.
supplying the site.
Okay, because if it's easier while everybody's here.
And I would like to get, again, all the information from the Department of Health,
Yes.
DEC, whoever.
At this stage, when you say all the information, I mean, there's an application in process
Yeah,
with both
I'd like to see
agencies.
that.
You'd like to
Whatever
see
the-
you'd like to see
The applications and whatever input you've gotten from
I was
them.
going to say, Henry, we could bring them the comments back from the health department.
Yeah.
And whatever they have already submitted to you to review, or your engineer to review, just give them copies.
Yeah.
So they can look at they'll see what stage it's at.
And
what
what their feelings are.
What their concerns are, absolutely.
Okay.
And before we make a motion, I know that you've been in touch with Chris about the authorization forms.
She has it.
Yeah, there was just, if you just look, at the bottom, there's the affidavit of
That's been
owner.
filled in tonight.
Yeah, this part, can you put
I-
Henry stamp in there?
Oh, I did it first.
Oh,
I
okay.
did it.
Okay, perfect.
We're ahead of you. Good. Chris is on the ball.
She always is.
Yes.
More questions. The document I've been looking at is called lot line alteration. That's not what we're doing.
That's the copy of the map that was filed for your reference.
Right, but do you have your own,
It's called a subdivision map.
and you've submitted?
It should be in your packet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also want to clarify one thing. I think that there was an element of, when I was first in touch with Mr. Matthews about the property, it was, for whatever it's worth, I don't know, probably nothing, but he didn't realize that this had not, it was a revelation that these were not,
He thought it was a subdivision.
he thought it was done.
Because it was through the planning board that it was subdivided, but it was subdivided with the condition that that parcel A be combined with the adjacent lands. And since the Zerukases did not purchase that land, that conveyance never happened. So it's sort of like the lot line alteration. Like I say, it gives the ability to convey the land, but it doesn't convey the land. Only the deed can do that, and they never went to the point of conveying a deed.
Do you happen to have handy the planning board resolution granting subdivision approval?
I do not have that.
How old would that
It was
be?
2014 was the year the map
no,
was
wow,
filed.
that's-
We probably have that, yeah.
Chris, we can do some digging on that?
I can submit it. I have it in a different folder. I didn't bring it.
Oh, yeah, well,
Absolutely,
that would,
please.
I think the board would like to see that.
But you're saying the deed wasn't filed for short and the map wasn't filed?
condition-
No, the map was
subdivision.
The
filed.
map was
The
filed?
map has to be
Okay.
filed before the deed can be filed.
Okay, but it didn't have to be. You did, or it was filed.
It was filed
Okay.
because I was doing my due diligence in
Yep.
order for Mr. Matthews to convey the land, and then there was a fire.
Okay.
And the people said, well, what do we need that land for? We got a property we can use now. So we need the site plan and resolution.
DEC,
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
I think there's also another variant, in addition, with the wetlands, that 25%, no more than.
I think I added that to the.
Yeah, it just, you hadn't mentioned it
Oh,
in the
okay,
application.
okay.
There's actually
It's hard to
five
remember all these things. Five
variants.
variances, yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
Johnny, did you guys talk about the secret and the designation of that? It's going to come up, assuming we
Yeah.
accept the application.
If you're comfortable with it, I would like to hold off on the classification until next meeting. We can do that right at the outset. You know, we think it's tight too, but there's a lot going on here, and we just want to be sure of that.
All right, so we just want to
Kim
make the
gave you
motion.
some notes.
Yes.
We already did some preliminary research on this. Kim gave you some notes on the grid, and so I want to just be sure that we're right.
Okay.
Because obviously, if it's unlisted and you have to do a seeker review, then we're going to take it a completely different path.
Mhm. But you feel that we can accept the application at
I
least?
think you can accept it as complete for the moment.
All right. And with that, council, I'll make a motion that we accept the application, subject to receiving the various items that we detailed. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. So we've accepted the application. John, since we haven't done the seeker determination, do you want to set the public hearing date?
Probably make a decision if it's unlisted.
Yeah,
Where do you
and,
want to-
I mean, this is one where,
If you want
aren't you
wait,
going to
yeah.
feel more comfortable with seeing the information? I mean, the
Yeah.
information that has yet to come in is not insubstantial. And that information also has to be in and available to the public before you open the public hearing. So I think that,
Defer the public hearing?
I think just waiting, yep.
Okay.
I know that the applicants put a lot of effort into pushing things this far. I understand that, but I think we just have to step carefully, because there's just, as you said, there's a lot of moving parts.
There are.
Yeah, and as far as referrals go, do you want to start on that, or just
Well,
hold
maybe
off
we'll
until
want
we
to
do
wait
that?
until we get all that
Yeah.
information, so that when we refer it out, we can provide them with the full information.
All right, so then we're just going to accept the application tonight, is what I'm hearing from council, basically.
Yep.
Does that sound right? All right. So we need to get all that information, and then when we get all that information, we'll go forward and we'll get council on the secret determination and also set up a public hearing.
And as long as we've submitted that stuff, we will be on the next agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
If anybody has any other questions, feel free to contact me at my office. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Sure.
All right, next we have, is it Kuffner? Anybody here at Kuffner? Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Patrick Logan. I'm an attorney with Regan Shaw here in the village of Rhinebeck. We've appeared before the ZBA twice before. I'm representing the Kuffners, who are proposing an addition to an accessory dwelling on a building on their lot. When they were trying to get the requisite approvals for that addition. They realized that they needed they were first informed that they needed 2 variances and then later 4. We've come before this board and explained the extent of the project before and submitted a letter summarizing why we believe the grant of these variances is appropriate. Unless you have any questions,
Well, yeah, this is the public hearing, so
Yeah.
let me ask first, is anybody here on this matter, the Cookner matter?
Me.
Me? Okay. If you have any questions or concerns, I'd ask that you identify yourself. If you could just stand up, identify yourself, where you reside, and fire away.
Well, my name is Laura Simmons. I live at 22 McGuire on the opposite end of that. I'm wondering where is the property, adjacent, to my land? What is it?
I'm not sure if this map will be workable for you or not, but I should have a map.
Here's an aerial line. That might.
Let's see. Here we go. Thank you. This is Route 9 coming in
Yeah.
down from the
Right,
village.
right.
This is Stanford Court.
Yes.
I believe Haggerty Hill Road is split up,
Yeah.
and their property is all the way back.
All right. So I was originally like a lot 11 on, but it's 22 now. So let's see.
So where
am
are
I?
you?
I think I'm here somewhere. Okay, something like my piece of land. So it's there here?
Yeah, this is the applicant's parcel.
Okay.
And you say you're somewhere in this range?
Well, I'm in McGuire Lane, so where is that?
I'm not familiar with McGuire Lane.
It's right off the back of the hook.
Kind of goes around. Yeah,
King Road
I don't have,
comes in
my
and-
Wi-Fi isn't working
But that-
too well.
Yeah.
So
I was
This
just
is what
wondering-
was
Oh,
that.
I think you might be north. of
Yes,
the property.
yep. It's McGuire.
Okay.
This is Route 9 coming in. This is Stanford, this is King Road.
I'm on
Yeah,
Wi-Fi,
King Road, yeah.
if I can get it up.
Yeah, and.
Yeah, we do.
King Road.
We really
is here, yeah. So, oh my gracious. I should have brought my own map. But I should have done.
I think John is trying to get it up, but I think he said from his recollection, McGuire,
Yeah,
road
this
is
would be
around, a
north.
little bit more north.
Yeah,
But this is just a PDF, so I can't really,
okay,
but we'll see if we can get something.
okay. I've gotten a notice, I was wondering where is this land connected to my?
Oh, yeah, I know, it's kind of nestled back there.
Yeah. It doesn't really have anything, really
I mean, that's for you to.
Well, Patrick, would you like to just explain a little bit about what the,
Sure, and also just for both of
No,
us.
I know.
So here we have Stanford Court.
okay, so this is,
And then McGuire.
this is Stanford Court on this map in the relation to the property.
And McGuire looks like it's directly north, so probably around here.
So maybe for Ms. Simmons, you want to just explain what the project is a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Just to summarize for the public, the Kufners have a house with a garage with an accessory dwelling, as well as several other accessory structures. These include a shed, a greenhouse, a playhouse. The variances are for an addition to the accessory dwelling. The side yard setback, I believe, is 50 feet. They would be 36 feet away from the one side yard. That would be all the way to the south, away from your property. And then the other variances are related to the number of accessory dwellings on this lot and the overall size of the total accessory dwellings. And that's what we're before the board for.
This does also look like the front map that you submitted to us.
Yes.
Good one.
So,
It's touchscreen if you need it.
okay. North is this direction.
Okay.
So they're proposing an addition to this garage, which would go out this way. your property, if I recall, is going to be somewhere in the development over here.
Yeah. Yep.
So here's the area in order.
This one looks like this one.
This is the.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the
If you want to see
typical-
a satellite image, they have something right here.
So this is the north end of the property, this is Stanford Court. I think this was McGuire around this area.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Shaped like this, that's all I can think I can.
Do you have any questions, concerns about the project?
Just still trying to
Yeah,
understand
so
the
trying to-
orientation.
Right here?
Yep.
Says it's, that's 14 McGuire. What, you were at
Well,
one,
maybe not then. I was at one, no, then it's not.
that's 12.
I was-
22, right?
Yeah,
There you are, right
there I
there.
am, okay, there.
And so this, see this is like that long
Yeah,
parcel right here.
yeah.
So this is the end of there, of
Yeah,
Crookner, and then this is where Miss Simmons.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and they're where? Yeah.
So
They're
see
probably
this?
another 1,000 feet.
Sorry. Oh, boy, okay, all right.
Yeah, this
So that's
this
really
little,
not gonna have it.
yeah, so this just, I know that this is, but this is you, and then they're right here.
Okay, all right, good enough.
Sir, do you have any questions, concerns? And if so, if you could just state your name, where you live, and ask your questions.
Chris Lipscomb, neighbor, and just, this is the first part of this,
And where do you reside?
I'm going to show you on the map, I'm right next door to the east.
Is there an address number? We just need it for the record, that's all.
It's Manston Drive.
Sorry, a little sensitive here.
I ordered this property.
Oh, is it on this one?
Well, this is incorrect, but this is,
Right above.
Oh, yeah, that's a historic map.
Here, so this is the property, you're one of these two, it says?
so.
Right, there's like, this is Stanford Lane at the
Yeah,
whole
so
set.
if you go just to the right here,
This right here?
yeah.
Right, and do you have,
Sorry, could I ask you to just state your name and address and through the microphone?
I did, but it's Christopher Lipscomb,
Oh,
70 Manskilling Drive.
thank you.
Thank you.
and do you have some questions for the applicant?
I'm trying to understand what
Okay.
this is about, because this is the first I've heard. Right next to me. Yeah. Listen.
Does the board have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think Richard might have one or two.
Yeah, Airbnb is a topic which, of course, affects Rhinebeck and all towns, all cities. I think that the board has to decide, not only in this application, but this evening in another application on Route 308, where there's an existing barn is going to be converted and leaving a primary home. And it's also could be an issue with a property like this, where you have a primary home and a space which I believe the owner's son and family are going to use. But Airbnb is complicated in that people vacate houses, they rent them out. There's so many ways of doing it. My personal point of view is I've evolved with this where I don't think we should ask the applicant his intentions regarding Airbnb. I think eventually Rhinebeck will pass an ordinance regulating it, and the officials of the town will enforce it. But I just wanted to bring it up if this board wanted to request the applicant's intentions. I personally don't, but that's just my opinion.
I can just affirmatively state that the applicant seeks this expansion because their children are welcoming another child, and that is the sole purpose. They're just trying to expand that living space for their use.
I really appreciate that. I have no further comments.
I don't have any questions. Any of the other board members have any questions, concerns? Obviously, we know the matter fairly well since you've been before us a couple of times before. Neighbors, if you have any questions, concerns, now's the time to ask the applicant.
Do you feel like you understand what's being proposed?
Not really, because.
Okay, that's
as I say,
where I
this is
think,
the first
I mean-
that I've heard of this. And it is directly in front of my property.
Maybe utilizing this document or some other document just to show where the structures are and where the addition is going to be. And you can actually use mine if you like, maybe point it out to the neighbors.
So, let's see, the lot is situated like this is north. I believe your property is over here. Okay.
I'm familiar with this property.
Oh, so,
I'm not familiar with what you're trying to do here.
Sure.
And I have concerns, this is a very rural
I understand.
section of the town. This is a historic property, it's a
So-
historic outlook, and this is right in front of it.
If guys, if you can keep your voices up so they can hopefully
Sure.
pick up on Candid.
So all of the structures that we're seeking approval for already exist, with the exception, with one kind of exception. They're proposing an addition to one structure. So there's already a structure there, they're just proposing to add an addition onto the garage, which already contains an accessory dwelling unit for their
familiar with
children. They're just adding a few hundred square feet onto that.
But where?
It's going to extend south towards this property line.
So further into my view shed in front of my house.
I believe it's mostly trees along here, but
I can tell you, there's
All
a
right.
big part of the year that I see exactly what's down there, because it's right below me.
okay.
So I'm concerned about that.
All right. We would be happy to talk to you about these concerns, make sure that we get to,
I think we need to discuss that,
all right.
because as I said, this is the first I've ever.
Oh, yes, this is the first public hearing on the matter, so we sent out notices to everyone too.
These are community neighborhoods, but it's
Well, I
breakfast.
know that we've
Oh.
concerned my neighbors,
Yeah.
so, as I say, this is the first I've heard of it. So
Okay,
I think I need to deal with that.
all right. We can try to present you more succinct information. I'm not sure if this would necessarily be the best venue.
This may
for
not
it.
be the forum, but we need to discuss it.
All right.
because I'm concerned.
Okay.
Let me see if
All right. It sounds like the neighbors don't have a great grasp of what's being proposed here. And it sounds like the applicant is more than happy to meet with you at some point in time to discuss those issues. So what I'd like to propose is to keep open the public hearing. I don't want to close it yet because there are two neighbors here who are not as informed as they would like to be. And you're willing to meet with them and address whatever concerns. So what I'd like to do is to make an application to keep this open. We'll put it on for a public hearing, continue the public hearing on July 17th, I think it is, which is our next public hearing. In the meantime, hopefully you can address the concerns of the neighbors, give contact information to each other and try to meet. And so you folks can let us know whether you're for it or against it.
If you have continuing concerns come the 17th, if you could either be here to communicate them to the board or to send something in writing, that would be appreciated.
So if you want to just come here for a second, there's a sketch showing the extent of the addition.
So you're familiar with the garage right here.
My primary concern is with lights and visual impact.
All right.
And as I said,
I have documents, I can show you this.
I mean, if you shared this document with him, I
I was
think
about to say.
that,
that would help.
All right.
that,
Okay.
that
So I think we're going to have an offline discussion.
Okay, that's great, and we'll be back on the 17th, and you can voice whatever concerns you have, or maybe say yes, no, whatever your opinion is when you're more informed. So at this point in time,
Just have one other thing, a site visit, are the Cookners here? Do we know if any of our members have gone out there? I don't think so.
I'm not familiar. The Cookners,
I think they're out of town, aren't they?
they've said, yeah, they're out of the country at the moment.
Right.
All right, you know what, the meeting's being continued.
We're gonna, well, I'm
We're
getting,
good.
I moved that, make an application, I moved that we continue the public hearing until July 17th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are you all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Yeah, so we'll have time to come out. Should we contact you about a site visit?
Sure. I can just contact me as well as, I believe you have the Cookners contact. So.
Well, if they're out of the country,
Oh, no, they're still responding by email. So, you can just
Why don't we go
contact
through
me
you?
directly. Okay, okay.
all right, great, thank you. We'll see you on the 17th. All right, next up is plat. Are there any folks here for the plat application? Okay. All right, what's going to happen here in the public hearing is that a presentation is going to be made about what their position is, and then if you would like to be heard, please come on up, state your name, where you reside, what concerns you have, what questions you have. You can address it to Mr. Platt here, and feel free to do so. So,
thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am the applicant with regard to this appeal. I'm also the landowner and also the attorney with respect to this appeal. I'm here tonight with regard to an interpretation I'm requesting of the zoning board, specifically with regard to a March 1st, 2019 letter that I received from the zoning administrator with her belief that my use of the property at 854 Mill Road was in violation of the Rhinebeck town zoning law. I do not agree with that, and I'm here asking the board for an interpretation that my use of the property is an agricultural use and permitted within the zoning district that the property is in. I believe the issue is one that is a simple one and one that's straightforward. Simple in that it's a focused issue on a single issue, that the property is, that the use is an agricultural use as permitted in the zone. A straightforward one in that it is not a subjective determination, but rather an objective determination and fact-driven, in that the Rhinebeck town zoning law has a very specific definition of what activities are agriculture, and that the facts here of the use fit squarely within the zoning law definition of an activity or activities that are agriculture. For purposes of this public hearing tonight, I know I made this presentation, an initial presentation earlier, but I will repeat the information that I presented earlier and also presented in a written form for the benefit of those who are here the first time tonight. I will begin with just some background information about the use, then talk a bit about the zoning law, and then conclude with applying the use to the zoning law, demonstrating that the use is in fact an agricultural use and therefore a permitted use and not a violation. So beginning with just some background information. Myself and my partner Patricia Wind, who's not here tonight, who's not able to be here, we are promoters of local small farms. We work with approximately 100 small farms throughout the Hudson Valley, helping them market their small farm product and transport their product from the farm to the buyer when they make a sale. We engage in activities on behalf of the farmer. We are not a wholesale business. A wholesale business is one in a business sense that buys and sells product. We do not buy any product, we do not sell any product. We simply provide a service to these small farmers, helping them market their product. And as part of marketing their product and making a sale directly to a buyer, part of that is getting the product from the farm in a timely manner to the buyer and in a food-safe manner in refrigerated vans. Now, as many of you may know, small farmers, by the very nature of them being small, they have to wear many hats. They have to perform many activities. Some of those activities are in the field or the barn. Some of those activities are on the phone or on the road in terms of marketing their product, getting their farm product to a buyer and then make a sale. Oftentimes, either the small farmer doesn't have enough time to do those types of activities or doesn't have the equipment or enough equipment to do it as much as they'd like to do, as much as they need to do to be able to continue their small farm operation to be successful and to thrive. So what we started to do a few years ago was we started to work with these local small farms, helping them, in a sense, in a cooperative manner, do some of these activities that they were doing, but not having enough time to do them themselves and doing them as much as they'd like to do to be successful and thrive. So essentially what we do in a cooperative manner with the farms that we work with locally, we help them market their product. We help them connect with buyers. Once we connect them with buyers, they make the direct sale between the buyer, between the farmer and the buyer. We're not involved with buying the product and reselling it. And as I mentioned, as part of making that sale to the buyer, it's essential to the buyer as part of agreeing to make the purchase from these small farms. Well, can I get it right away? And can I get it in a food-safe manner? And so that's where we help them out with refrigerated vans. Some of them have equipment to do that, some of them don't. Some of them don't have enough. So that's in essence what we help them do.
How do you guys get paid?
So we are paid for the marketing service and the transportation service from the farmer. Now, the use that's at issue here of the property is the parking of the vans on the property. That's the use that's at issue that we're here about, okay? So I want to then, so factually that's the background, factually that's the use that's at issue. Again, one of the issues that the zoning administrator raised was that we're operating a wholesale business. As I mentioned moments ago, we're not wholesalers, we're not distributors, wholesalers, we don't buy and sell anything, we don't warehouse anything, we simply help the farmer make that direct sale. So in a business sense, we're not a wholesale business. In a sense of looking at the definition in the Rhinebeck Town zoning law of a wholesale business, which is part of the packet, to meet the definition of a wholesale business in the Rhinebeck Town zoning law, we would need to either be selling the product ourselves, which we don't do, or buying and selling and distributing the product, again, which we don't do. So by either of those methodologies looking at it, we are not a wholesale business. Now, looking at the zoning law specifically,
sorry, I have
sure,
a question.
Sure.
Do you have a contract template or some sort of standard form that you use between your firm and the farmers?
No, we have no contracts with the farmers.
You don't have any agreement with the farmers. How do they know what they're agreeing to have the service that you're...
Sure. So it's a service fee that's on a sliding scale depending upon the farm size and the amount of product they sell.
So there's a brochure or something that you have so the farmer's aware of what the services are going to cost.
So what we did was we developed an app. It's an online sales platform. It's a 24-hour farmer's market where the farmer puts their product on the app, available for all buyers who want to buy local product, and they then buy directly from the farmer. Based upon many factors, including the product type, geography, the amount of sales, The fee that we then charge the farmer is on a sliding scale. It depends. And with each farmer, they know what that is, but we don't have any written contract.
And these vehicles are only used for moving produce.
Right, only used for moving that farm product.
Would you agree that if they didn't move produce, if there wasn't a farming component, that this would not be allowed? That the farming aspect is what...
I do agree with that, yes, right. So and that's a great point, because in essence, what this is simply is, what we do simply is perform an activity that the farmer would be doing themselves. It's simply doing it on their behalf, which is exactly what the Rhinebeck Town zoning law allows, is to perform activities on the farmer's behalf connected with farming. And then there's a very specific definition within, of course, as we talked about, the definition that then defines out specific activities. There are things like dealing with animal waste. There are things like dealing with tilling, plowing, planting, harvesting, marketing, which is the one that applies here, transporting product, fencing, fertilizing, a whole series of listed activities that are defined in the second paragraph of the definition, of which what we do as marketing is one of those specific activities that is defined as an agriculture activity. And then it is the marketing of that farm product, and it's the transportation of that farm product that is simply a replication of these very activities that farmers do.
Is there a separate are you compensated separately for market making and transportation and distribution?
No, it's a single service, really, because really the transportation is really part of that marketing service, because the farmer can't get the buyer to agree to buy the product from them as a small farmer unless they know you can get it to me quickly and timely and get it to me in a food-safe manner. So really, it goes together as part of the marketing.
Compensation's on a sliding scale. What's that key to?
It's key to a variety of factors, as I mentioned, in terms of what the product is, where the farmer is located, geography-wise. From Rhinebeck, we only work within a 100-mile radius. Some of them are very close, some of them much further away, and depending upon the overall sales for the year.
The deliveries are 100 miles?
Deliveries also within 100 miles. Everything's within a 100-mile zone. Farm and buyers, all within 100 miles.
So how would you convince a skeptic that there's a difference between what you do and a trucking firm?
Well, what I would do is I would have two things. One is that a trucking firm is what's in the business called independent truckers for hire. Okay, we are not independent truckers for hire. That's one thing. We provide a marketing service of which part of transportation is part of that for the farmer. The second way I could convince a skeptic is to have you hear directly from some of the farmers themselves that what the activities we're doing for them are simply the activities they do themselves. So if it's agricultural and farming activity for them, then simply because we're doing it on their behalf, it doesn't make it not an agricultural or farming activity. So maybe perhaps now is a good time, a few of the farmers we work with volunteered to come here tonight and tell you about that. So perhaps it's a good time now to have them do that. So Chris, why don't you come on up and introduce yourself and later.
Hello, my name is Chris Regan. I have been making a living as a farmer for the last 23 years in Millerton, New York. And I grow salad greens primarily for restaurants. Most of that time, I was doing all my own marketing, doing all my own trucking, moving the product to the restaurants, billing them. And when these guys approached me, it really did seem like a service to me. And that's basically what they presented, was a way to make a farmer's life easier. I spent probably 20% of my time driving around. I didn't have refrigerated trucks, so this was an improvement for me. They now, they come right to the farm, they pick up what I would be delivering, they deliver it, I get to set my own prices, I make the deal essentially with the restaurants the way I always did, through an app now, but it's me and them. Yeah, it really does basically simplify my life and feel like a service more than, I've dealt with distributors, you know, and that's a very different relationship. With a distributor, they're naming the price that they're gonna give me. And, you know, they're demanding that I bring it to them. They're dealing with the customers completely separately. You know, I don't have a relationship with customers at that point. So this really feels like a very distinctly different thing and very much a service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you storing anything on your property?
No, we warehouse nothing. It goes from the farm to the buyer.
I have a
So,
hypothetical. If your neighbor who moved to Mill Road looked out his or her back window and saw 3 trucks there,
3 vans. Okay.
3 vans,
Sometimes 4.
sometimes
Which
4,
I
what
mentioned.
would be the concern of that owner who moved to Mill Road, now looking at 4 vans, that it might be 8? If this was granted.
Well, I can't put myself in the head of someone else and speculate, but what I could address it in some manner by this, and that is that, you know, there's a long history of tension between agriculture and adjoining homeowner property, which has pre-existed for many years, and I suspect will continue to exist. The point would be that this property is in the RA10 zoning district, which, as you well know, stands for Rural Agricultural 10. Within the town zoning law, agriculture is permitted. So it could be a pig farm next door with a large, odorous, situation going on. That's simply a tension between agriculture and residential property that pre-exists, anything we're doing, and it exists across all properties. That's just one example. Another example would be that if it's a crop situation and there is large, which is permitted, of course, growing crops in a rural agricultural 10 zone. If there are large tractors, if there are large plows that are parked at the agricultural property next to the homeowner, again, that's a tension, but it's permitted as agriculture. If that farmer, whether they're raising crops or raising livestock, and they have vans, trucks on their property that they use to help market their product, to bring their product from their farm to the buyers, like some of the truck farmers do, like for example, Migliorelli has many trucks on their farms. That's always an existing tension between an agricultural operation and an adjoining homeowner. That's just something that's an existing problem, an existing issue that is part of agriculture and part of adjoining property owners. That's not, and within the Rhinebeck town zoning code, there is, as you probably well know, language that discusses that agriculture is encouraged in the town of Rhinebeck. Agriculture is promoted in the town of Rhinebeck. And in fact, there are specific provisions in the Rhinebeck town code that address that type of situation that you're talking about, where there is an issue between a permitted agricultural use and an adjoining residential property that requires the adjoining residential property owner to take measures, if they choose to address the issue that they have a concern with the agriculture operation, not the other way around. You may be familiar with that.
So if you were going to expand into composting and processing manure and things like that, would that be something that would be permissible under the interpretation that you're advocating?
Well, it's not my interpretation. In fact, the Rhinebeck town zoning law specifically relates,
But that doesn't answer my question.
Sure, we have absolutely no interest in or intention or ever will of be moving into any processing of the animal waste. We simply...
Okay, but under the interpretation that you're advocating, though, it would be allowed. If that waste was coming from farms and a service was being provided to farmers for the processing of that waste and for the composting, then It would be a different service than the one you're providing, but it would be a service.
Well, it wouldn't be my interpretation. It would be the Rhinebeck Town zoning law as it's written, which specifically states any activity connected with the raising of crops or livestock, and then continuing the second sentence to be specific, it says, this shall encompass any activity or use engaged in by or on behalf of the farmer in connection with farming.
I'm familiar with the definition.
Okay, and it lists specifically with the collection, transportation, distribution, and storage of animal and poultry waste. So it wouldn't be my interpretation. It would be absolutely specifically addressed by the zoning law already.
Okay, I understand. That's your position. Thank you.
With regard to, large numbers, they're parked in my driveway. There's a limitation as to numbers in and of itself. We would look to be, if getting any larger, we'd be looking to be moving to another property within the rural agricultural 10 zone in Rhinebeck, being an agricultural use. But as I say, it's limited by my driveway.
So you're maxed at 4 right now, basically?
More or less. Yeah.
Do you have another person you wanted to present?
Yes, so Ray wants to come up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ray Towsey. I reside in Claremont, just above Red Hook. I'm a grower. I've been affiliated with Farm to Table from the get-go. I'm very pro Farm to Table. My primary product is honey. I do numerous other things, but that's my primary product. I've been doing business with Farm to Table, but I also have many other outlets. I'm a member of the Farmers Market across the street. I've been there for 20 years. I sell to the health food stores, Rhinebeck Health Food, Red Hook Health Food, Catskill Health Food, Hudson Health Food, many other outlets. This is the newest one, but it's a very positive outlet. And as Cliff was saying, what they do for the small farms around here is phenomenal. They deliver my product. Cliff said 100-mile radius. I'm not driving 100 miles with my product. I'm just not doing it. They provide transportation. A second thing they provide for me, their marketing antenna far exceeds mine. They have contacts I don't have and I never will have. A lot of the people I'm selling to through them, I don't even know them. These restaurants, I don't know the owner. Do I care? No. I don't know the chef. I don't even know where they're located. I don't need to know. What I need to know is how they operate and what they can do for me. And as I said, they distribute my product. They find markets that I would not find on my own. And the third thing that's not been mentioned is they chase money. Makes you chuckle, but I've got other accounts, 90 days delinquent, 6 months delinquent, maybe a year delinquent. They are direct deposit. I know exactly what I'm going to receive and when I'm going to receive it. They chase money. Is that an agricultural function? To me it is. No money, no honey. To me it's important. So this is what these people do for me. The accounts that I have with them, this is just this week. Nighthawk, Mohawk, Taste of New York, Red Hat, Pauling, Amsterdam, Etsy, Foxfire. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Small accounts. The numbers that I match with these, this is dollars. $34, $76, $136, $74, $14, $120, $68. Foxfire, I Googled them today. They're 56 minutes away. Am I going to drive a 2-hour round trip for $68? No. Is Foxfire coming to me for $68? No. What would become a Foxfire? I wouldn't have it. And most of these accounts, I would not have. I just can't be on the road for that kind of money. They can. That's their business. That's what they do. I'm very happy to be part of them. It's been a positive impact to my business. And overall, in terms of agriculture, they've introduced technology to agriculture in this local area. It's all right here. Everything done is right here. I have an iPad at home because if I'm not around to take an order or accept an order, somebody can do it on my behalf because my iPad is wired to the same app. Farm to Table provides the app, they provide the printer. When I accept an order, this comes out of the printer. This sticks on my package. My package goes in a container that I have outside my building. There's a combination lock on that cabinet that I have. The driver has the combination, I have the combination. The tooth fairy shows up sometime and empties that cabinet. Scans for this, takes that day's order, is gone. I don't meet him, I don't stand there, I don't shake his hand, I don't even see him. Shows up at some time, gone, order's gone. I get paid direct deposit. These folks have introduced technology to agriculture. And it just happens that we in ag tend not to be techies. We need to catch on, we need to catch up. I mean, I struggle with it. But these people have introduced technology. They've made it simpler, quicker, easier, faster. They've given me a much more broader spectrum which I can serve through their technology. I find that very positive. Once upon a time, I was on the road making these deliveries. I'm a grower, come on. I can't be talking to these chefs. I can't be answering a phone all day, jotting down orders. It all comes right here. Right here. Simple, easy, quick, fast. They do it, it works. Direct deposit, Yahoo. I don't chase money. They chase money. Do you folks have any questions for me?
I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just one additional.
Okay. I know there are some folks in the audience who would like to get up, but...
Katie, get the last one.
Okay. Well,
Hi, I'm Katie Baptiste. I'm a local third-generation farmer, and I recently, well, in 2014, I purchased land in Red Hook, and I built my farm. I left the family farm, and the base of my business is in farmers markets. And Farms to Tables has been the best thing that's happened to my business, and I think to a lot of farms in the area. They're unique in that they're not a distributor. We do, like we said, we set our own prices. I'm a huge advocate for them. I mean, I love working with them. It's easy. Like Ray was saying, it's, you know, you get your orders, you pack them up, you put them out, they come and they pick them up, you get paid. You know, I wouldn't be doing the business I am right now if it wasn't for Farms to Tables, which is helping me to succeed and pay my bills, the mortgage, and keep moving that mountain and working, you know, the farm the way I am. I also have a 3-year-old, so I'm a mom and a farmer, so a lot of hats to be had. And it's such a huge part of farming, the sales, the marketing, delivering, getting your product from A to B. Okay, I grow this product, I grow these chickens, I raise them, I slaughter them, I have beautiful fresh chicken. Who's gonna buy it? You know, they have the buyers, they have this app where the buyers can sign on any time of day, the chefs can go on at midnight and place their order. And I get up in the morning and I see it there and I know how many chickens I'm gonna slaughter. You know, it's just, it takes the guesswork out of, you know, am I gonna have an order this week, and trying to like hound down, you know, that chef and get that order from them. And even trying to go out and find those accounts and then getting paid. And it's an essential service. It's one that I wouldn't be doing for myself right now. I would just be selling my product at farmers markets. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work. We do the green markets in New York City. It's 100 miles, you know, there, and it's a full weekend. And when I used to do it myself, it's like a 40-hour work weekend. So my hope is that I can do less farmers markets and I can have more business through Farms to Tables and grow and be successful and continue to feed the community and just do it all in a way that isn't, you know, that's like feasible, where I'm not gonna be struggling, you know, to get to bed at night or just to get paid. So it's all part of the package. I mean, you can farm, but you have to have an outlet to sell that product. You have to be able to get paid. You have to be able to get it from A to B. I don't have the equipment that they have. I don't have refrigerated vans. I've got, you know, regular vans that I take, passenger vans. I take my product down to the farmers markets on ice. My chicken's all on ice. We go to the farmers markets. It's a long day. You set up. You know, you may or may not have sales. And what they've provided for me is more of a steady income through the winter. When we have hard winters and we can't maybe say get off the farm, actually physically even get down to the city, sell our product, I can rely on the fact that they're there to provide that income to keep us going, you know, over the winter until we get to the spring. So they're a huge asset to the farming community, and I'm a big advocate as they've really helped my business survive and, you know, hopefully more like thriving in the future. So, and that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, I know we have some folks here on the application. Come on up. If you, again, you can state your name, your address, and your questions, concerns, whatever you want to talk about.
I'm Ed Tobin. I live at 30 Cove Road, which is in your neighborhood. And I've watched your company grow. It's up to 4 vans at some times. I'm relating to your concern when it gets to be 8, and it will, because it's being very successful. It is a wonderful service to farmers. With the app, which makes it possible for the farmers to sell using this app, that sounds like selling to me. And by chasing money, that sounds like collecting, which brings it a little bit closer to the wholesale business that you were concerned about. I drive by there at least twice a day, sometimes 6 or 8 times a day. It looks like a trucking plant to me. It's a delivery service, an important one to farmers, but it's a delivery service. UPS will come out and pick up packages at your home if you arrange it properly. They're picking up packages and delivering them. That's a trucking firm. You look at it, you can see it's a trucking firm. You ought to take a ride out and take a look. Get there early in the morning or late in the afternoon or on a weekend, because the trucks are on the road doing their job during the day. I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, for being here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
My name is John McKay. I live in 1 Cove Road in Rhinebeck. I've been
He's a neighbor too.
Member of this community for almost 30 years. I'm a United States combat veteran. I've been to 2 tours in Southeast Asia. I'm a retired psychiatric registered nurse from the VA hospital in Montrose, which is right down the road. I'm a property owner, I'm a taxpayer, and I also pay the Vandenberg Cove sewer rents, which most people in this town do not have to do. But 40 of us in that neighborhood, and it is a neighborhood. It's not one home acting in a vacuum. It's a neighborhood of 40 single-family residences, including Mr. Platt's. So when Michelle Turk tells you, and I can't speak highly enough of this woman, she has worked tirelessly, because it has been a nightmare for my home. When she says that this is a wholesale trucking operation out of a garage of a single-family residence, which it is, there hasn't been a car parked in that garage for 3 years. That is their warehouse. That's their warehouse, just like Red Barn Produce has a warehouse. He started out of the back of his pickup truck, and you can see where he is today. I take her at her word. She knows what she's doing. She's serious about her job. She's smart, she's tough, she's professional. She doesn't deal in trifles. And this, from my point of view, is no trifling matter. It has been a nightmare for me and the people who share my home. Our properties abut in the rear at about 90 degrees. I see everything that goes on in that home, out of that garage, every single day of the year. It is relentless. You can take what Miss Turk has given you, the photographs and what she has written, and multiply that times 355, because that's about the number of days that they operate. And it has been a nightmare for me and the people who share my home. And it has to stop, because we cannot endure it anymore. It's been 3.5 years, day after day after day after day after day. And if you're tired of me saying that, think how tired we are of putting up with it. And we shouldn't have to. We should not have to. Every day. We wake up to it every morning when we sit down at the breakfast table. We see it every evening when we sit down to the dinner table. We listen to it every night. The trucks will operate, the people will go home, the entire county will be asleep. And almost every truck he has in his driveway is running. All night long. Till the next morning when the drivers arrive and they take the trucks out and the whole vicious cycle starts all over again. These are refrigerated trucks. They come in the afternoons. They have other people come in to help unload and load the trucks in their warehouse. It's not a garage, it's a warehouse. And those trucks sit there with their headlights on and idle all night long with those refrigerated units going from Thermo King to 220s or the 320s, whatever they've got on top of their trucks. And it goes all night long. We had to move our bedroom from the right side of the house to the left side of the house because we could not live. Our privacy was invaded. The noise was too much for us to sleep. The headlights in our windows, the traffic, the noise, the exhaust, it goes on and it never ends. I applaud him and his partner for this great idea. I wish them all the success in the world. I hope they make $1 zillion. I hope they make $2 zillion. But not at my expense or anybody else in that neighborhood. This is with us every single day. And we can't put up with it anymore. We cannot endure this anymore. So I'm asking you tonight for protection. I need protection. And I'm not afraid or embarrassed to ask for it. This is what the zoning code is all about. This is what this town was built on. This is the reputation of Rhinebeck, New York. This is why I moved here. This is why I bought a home here. Because Rhinebeck tells me that I will be protected. The value of my property will be protected. My peace and quiet will be protected. And it's being taken from us every day. And I want it back. That's all I'm asking. I want what's been taken from us without our consent. I want it back. They have taken it from us. And it's unacceptable. If you let this happen at his house, if you let this ride, you'll open a Pandora's box whose lid you will never close. Ever. The ramifications of which nobody knows. If you let it go there, it can go anywhere in that neighborhood, evidently. There's 2 or 3 homes for sale right now in Cove Road that would be perfect for a farming operation, trucking operation. They've got 2 curb cuts just like he does. It's perfect. Slide those trucks up there, load them up, slide them right out again. There's one on Clay Court. It's going to be going up. I just there talking to the owner the other day. They're going to put their home up for sale. It's a perfect spot. If they can do it, why can't we? And then where do you draw the line? You can't draw a line. You can't control this. You can't monitor this. They wanted 5 trucks. When they had 3, the trucks just kept coming and coming. We didn't know what was going on. In his partner's own words, she said, it's in an article you probably read. We have 3 trucks. We have 2 more on order. That's 5. They were considering box trucks at one time. Again, her own words. And her own words, we are basically a for-hire trucking company. Miss Wynn's own words. It has to stop. I need your protection. And by extension, everyone in that neighborhood needs your protection. It says right here in the zoning code. I'm 70 years old. 71. The median age of this town is, I think, 54. The median age of New York State is 38. So most of the people in this town, including me and the woman that I share my life with in my home, are closer to the end than we are the beginning. So you cannot tell us now, not now, not at this stage of the game, that whatever time we have remaining to live in this town and enjoy what we thought were our rights and privileges, you cannot tell us now that the quality of our life and the quality of our environment and our privacy and everything that goes along with it is going to be dictated to us by 2 people who have so perverted the intended use of their single-family residence in a neighborhood of single-family residences that you can't even distinguish what it is when they're in full operational mode. They have 4 trucks there at all times, and they idle all night long. And they have people come in pickups and cars who help maneuver the trucks up and down the driveway, and when they're parked halfway up that second driveway, they're well within 100 feet of my property line. It's unacceptable. That's not why I moved here. That's not why anybody moves here. I could go on and on about this. And as you can see, I'm very emotional. It's been 3.5 years and nothing has been done. And now Ms. Turk finally showed us a light at the end of this nightmarish tunnel that we've been putting up with. And now it's up to you. She can do no more. She's been brilliant. I have nothing but praise for that woman. But now it's up to you. Your decision is my fate. If you let this go in any form, then I have to go. Because we cannot live with it. We cannot. And if this was in any other home in that Cove Road neighborhood, the Vanderbilt Cove neighborhood, you'd have 15 people standing here talking just like I am. Be very fortunate that I'm really the only one that is hammered by this every day. In closing, I ask each one of you, in your neighborhood, would it be permitted? Would this go over in your neighborhood? Dave, Scott, would it? Our neighbors couldn't be more similar. 35 plus homes, single family residences, an acre or more of land, located just off a major artery. It's scenic, it's quiet, it's peaceful. That's how these homes are marketed. The only difference between our neighborhood, I pay the Vanderbilt Cove sewer rents and you do not, mercifully. That's the only difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to point something out, actually, I'm coming back up here. The gentleman said that compared farms to tables to a Red Barn, a distributor like that. Well, actually that product that's in their driveway is my product. And I haven't been paid for it, by farms to tables. They haven't purchased it from me, so therefore it's not a warehouse. It is a delivery service. It's an extension of my farm. It's my right arm. I'm producing it, and they are getting it from point A to point B for me. And going back to agricultural and community tensions, that's always going to exist. I have a 71-acre farm in Red Hook, and I have neighbors to this day that are still, not thrilled that I'm there. And you're always going to have that. There's always going to be someone that's going to be unhappy. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, how did that food get on your table in the morning? Well, you're having dinner at night. It's not in my backyard. Nobody wants it to happen. Nobody wants agriculture to happen next to them. But we all go to the grocery store, or we eat. And it's important to remember where that food comes from and how it got there. And now I'm working really hard day and night to get it there. And, without someone like Farms to Tables to be able to make that happen for me, I'm at a loss, a big loss. So just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to be heard?
Mr. Platt, do you reside at this property?
Yes, I do. So,
And do you have for your real estate taxes, do you have an agricultural exemption?
no, I do not. I don't believe that's a consideration, however, as to whether or not an activity is agriculture within the Rhinebeck Town zoning law definition of agriculture. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I would like an opportunity to address the two gentlemen who spoke, though.
I do have one or two questions. I did want to point one thing out, and thank you for your passionate response here, which is very much appreciated. I do want to point out one, since you took a moment, I guess, to look up where we live. There is one more difference, I think, which is that we live in residential, your residential/ag zoning, and that's another important difference between us. I do have a couple of questions based on his testimony, though. One is this notion that you are operating trucks and perhaps idling and refrigeration units going, noise, exhaust all night, and this idea that, at least I thought I heard mention that there are things being basically stored on site overnight and essentially warehoused, if you will, and perhaps your garage being used. That's what I heard. I guess
Sure.
I'm asking you.
Right. Those were issues I would like to address, and thank you for pointing me to those. The refrigerated vans have units on them that operate on the road off the engine, and they operate when they're parked at night when needed by what's called standby. They plug in, so there's no need to have the vans running. They operate simply by a plug-in, so there's no idling all night and
Do they make
noise issues. Excuse me?
Do they make noise, the refrigeration units?
Less than a house air conditioner. They're small units.
Less than what?
Less than a house air conditioning unit?
So this is a difference of opinion as to how exactly the noise may be carried to neighboring houses?
It's factual. The refrigeration units on top of the van. It refrigerates the small van space within it. It's a plug-in device. They're for standby. Secondly, the product, when it's not delivered the same day on the road, it stays on the vans because I don't have refrigeration in my basement. The product needs to be refrigerated. They stay on the vans. There's no warehousing of any product in my garage. So that's a factual inaccuracy also.
Can I ask, why would something not be delivered within the same day?
It depends upon routes, where a particular pickup was at a farm that day versus where the buyer is the next day.
So how long would it be on site?
Just overnight.
So 12 hours, something like that?
Yeah, just inside the van overnight. So nothing stored, there's no warehousing, nothing stored. Unlike Red Barn, there was mention of Red Barn, which they are a traditional wholesale distributor. They purchase the product from the farmer in bulk. They bring it back to their large warehouse facility with refrigeration units, rooms, bulk pallets, and then try and find buyers and resell the product. That's the Red Barn operation.
Do you actually remove things and put them in
I'm sorry?
To remove produce or farm goods and put them on a different truck?
Yes, sometimes when they come back at night, if it's going to go on a different route, we move from the back of one to the other.
If I could ask a question of the neighbors who remain, I think there's only one now. When you acquired your home, was it zoned residential / agricultural?
I didn't look at the zone, Dave.
Okay.
I had
All right,
I had no idea that this kind of stuff went on. It was a home and it was available and I liked it and I bought it. And at the time, the people living where Mr. Platt lives now, there was a single-family residence. The agent didn't tell me, if you're lucky, you'll have a trucking company move in behind you in a couple of years. He didn't say, you know.
Okay.
It's residential homes. I mean, it's,
You know, I know the neighborhood, of course, and I know ours, and I wouldn't have guessed that it was part ag, so.
So just, I'm sorry, to that point, I mean, with the zoning map, which, you know, is here, this entire green area is the rural agriculture zone. That agriculture is permitted in the entire green zone, of which the property we're talking about is within the rural agricultural zone. Now, within that zone, there are, of course, houses. So there are, you know, there's a dairy operation, you know, within that zone also. There's another operation, an equestrian operation. There is a beef operation, beef cattle operation. So you have these, you know, agricultural activities taking place in the entire RA10 zone where there are houses. So when, as I mentioned before, you have these tensions between, you know, agriculture and residential areas.
Are there any other operations that are taking place on lots that are your size or smaller?
That I don't know. But again, I don't, there's nothing in the zoning code that discusses you need a 100-acre property to have an
Well, it's
agricultural operation.
10-acre minimum lot size in the zone. It's RA10.
Well, there are many properties that are less than 10 acres in the rural agricultural zone.
Who's saying that?
Yeah. So I would also just, you know, like to you know, add and discuss that, you know, I appreciate, you know, the concerns that have been raised by Mr. Tobin and Mr. McKay. I understand, you know, from their perspective, you know, issues, you know, that they may be experiencing. You know, I think there are some factual inaccuracies that I've spoken to, but equal to, you know, Mr. McKay's, you know, emphatic, impassioned request of you that, you know, for, I think the word was protection. I think what we have is law. We have our laws, and a zoning law, zoning code is a law. And within the zoning law, within the zoning code, is the law of what is permitted and what is not. As a property owner in any of the rural agricultural zones, a property owner has the as of right, permitted use of those activities that are permitted in the agricultural zone. So equally so, the property owners, not only myself, but any property owner in rural agricultural 10 should have the protection of the zoning board, of the zoning administrator, of the town, to use that property for the permitted use, of which this agricultural use is a permitted use. So I would equally relate to that. And that's really all I have to say.
What's the size of your lot?
It's 2.94 acres. I'm sorry, 2.96.
it says 2.94 in the parcel map.
Okay, I may be mistaken on that, and if it is, I apologize.
Anybody else like to be heard on this application? Mr. McKay, would you like to be heard again or respond? I think we get a very good idea.
The sound from those refrigeration units is not the sound of an air conditioner. We have, and I can count on one hand, the number of evenings that we have been able to sit on our back deck and enjoy a glass of wine without having to share that evening with his refrigeration units. I can hear him from that deck. I can hear him from the deck out of the master bedroom. I can hear him off the deck from my kitchen. I can hear him from the edge of my driveway. I can hear them. I can hear them. I can hear them all night. I don't know what else I have to say. It cannot continue. It cannot. It becomes a health issue at some point. How much can somebody stand? And why are they special and I'm not? Why are they rewarded and I'm penalized? What have I done? What have I done? What crimes have I committed? Other than trying to live my life the way it's supposed to be lived, respecting the rights and privileges of the other neighbors. That's a crime. For that I'm penalized and he's rewarded. I don't get it. I don't get it.
So in response to that, respectfully, I don't think it's an issue of rewarding or punishment. I think it's an issue of...
It certainly is punishment. Absolutely,
I
it's
don't want
punishment.
people to be arguing with each other. I understand everybody's passionate in their positions, but we can also be civil. Unlike folks in Washington, you know? So we're civil here.
Absolutely. So the second thing I would say to that is, I didn't address this specifically, but I'm aware that there are provisions within town zoning code with respect to noise regulation and decibel levels. If needed, we could take a decibel measurement level at Mr. McKay's property on his deck, and I could be fairly certain that it's not going to exceed the decibel level that would be a violation of a noise regulation.
It's an interesting proposal.
Should that be,
Well, have
should that be an issue?
you investigated any other methods of mitigating potential off-site impacts of your business activities?
I'd be happy to address any that you're thinking of. I'm not sure what you mean.
I don't have answers right now, but I'm just thinking about, you know, it seems like noise is one element, the visual impact is another element. I mean, there are, we don't do that at this board, but there are techniques that are used over at the planning board all the time for mitigation of noise, for screening visual impacts.
We did it with the gun club.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And we actually did measurements.
If that's something that's, wasn't raised earlier, but if there is an allegation that the noise level exceeds the decibel level permitted by the town code, that's something certainly we could address in terms of a decibel level measurement, which again, I'm fairly certain it would not exceed the decibel level that is in the town zone.
I guess I have similar questions to John's more broadly. I mean, the neighbors have spoken about light and noise and activity in the morning, noon, and night, and this conflict between farming and residential use. Have you thought about ways to reduce that conflict?
Voluntarily.
Voluntarily,
Okay.
of course, right,
So-
separate from this process?
So in terms of lights, I don't know what that is because certainly don't have the headlights on the vans on. I don't know why we would do that. There's no reason to. So I don't think it's I think factual inaccuracy. With regard to the standby refrigeration, again, they're quieter than a house air conditioner. That's why I'm fairly confident that a decibel level meter measurement, it's got to be well over 100 feet to his back deck area. I would be fairly confident that that is not a violation. But certainly, if those are the two issues, we would be agreeable to attempting to work out whatever might be a solution.
On your 2+ acres, is there anywhere else? If part of the application to move your parking?
So the driveway is in a particular location where the vans are parked because of the topography of the property from Mill Road. It goes down, so the trucks are actually parked in the driveway. Visually from the road, all one can see are I gave you the picture, the very tops of them, just really the top 8 inches maybe. So really that's the spot they can be. If there was another spot to put them, that could be an avenue, right, but on the other side, right. And I might add, although, again, we would be amenable to a solution that would address any factual, accurate concerns, but as you well know, within the zoning code, whenever there's a tension issue between agriculture and the adjoining property owner, the way the town zoning code is written right now is that it's the town zoning code puts that on the adjoining residential owner, not the farmer, for the purposes of not putting that onus on the agricultural activity. But that being said, not saying we're not amenable to solution finding.
Anyone else? Questions, concerns from the board? Anything else? All right, John, I think we've had enough input to close the public hearing. What say you?
That's up to the board.
I know it's up to the board, but I mean, I don't know that there's.
I mean, the only, is this our first session?
This is our first.
Yeah.
And we could hold it open and actually go out there and do kind of a fact-finding kind of thing.
At this point, having your truck somewhere else, financially, that's just not really.
Correct. There was, also some commentary about, hope that we do well and make $1 million. We've made no money. This is really a circus that we have not seen a dime on at this point. So having to put the truck somewhere else would be extreme hardship.
So would you be interested in trying to make an arrangement to go out at a time in the evening
I want to
when
hear
those
this.
trucks are all
Yeah.
in the driveway? And to the best that you can, sort of simulate the
I want to hear what Mr.
experience
McKay's here.
of the neighbors? And then, in that instance,
Mr.
I
McKay.
think that it would be a good idea to keep the public hearing open in case you want to request additional information
Okay.
based on that.
All right, that makes sense. And this is a very important issue for both sides. I would like to go out and I would like to hear what Mr. McKay says is out there. And
Mr. McKay, what would be a representative time for this board to go visit this site to experience the conditions that you were describing in your
3
testimony?
o'clock in the morning. Go
Is
out
that
at
the
3
best
o'clock in the
time?
morning. Do not tell Mr. Blackman you're going, but go out at 3 a.m. Go out at 10 p.m.
No, he'll be running the trucks when we go. I'm not worried about that. 5 a.m.
If they're not running, you can ask that they be turned, the refrigeration units be turned on so that you have an
Exactly,
opportunity
yes.
to observe that, yeah.
So the condition at 8 o'clock at night would be the same as the condition at 3 in the morning. They're plugged in, the units are running. And then the other thing, they're not running continuously. The temperature gets to the refrigeration temperature and they shut off for whatever period of time until it needs to be cooled down again. So it's not a continuous
But I
run.
think his point is
But, yes, there's no question but what.
if it went on and he was sleeping and it was loud enough.
Right,
the
easily
service-
simulated so that whenever there's a
Great.
request for a site visit, that the 4 vans
8
be
o'clock
there,
at night,
and that the
vehicles
4
running.
vans have the refrigeration
Right.
units
All right, so-
running, so that there could
Coordinated
be
with you.
a standing on his deck, that's apparently the issue, and you could hear.
Right, we'll coordinate that. And so
I
in the
think that's
meantime,
really the best way
I
for the
think-
board to get a firsthand, so that you can make an accurate judgment for yourselves. I mean, the testimony
Be happy to do
obviously
that.
is valuable, but it doesn't, nothing beats
Absolutely.
getting there.
All right, so I make a motion that we continue the public hearing until the next public hearing on July 17th. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
In the meantime, we will coordinate with the applicant, Mr. McKay, and go out there and do a site visit. Huh?
Applicant McKay?
No, applicant and Mr. McKay.
Mr. McKay, can you give your contact information to Chris Hedges, who's the board secretary?
All right, so
Excellent.
we'll see you in the next couple of weeks or so.
Good. So
Get
we'll
out
have
there.
a mutual agreeable time
Yes.
for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I apologize to the other applicants that we've gotten a little longer than we thought. So anyway, the next one is it Parisi? She's not here?
Maybe the email, from the email, I don't know.
I don't know.
The other one.
All right, so what,
Anybody in the public is here.
yeah, is anybody from the public on the Parisi matter? Apparently not, so just
Yeah.
adjourn the public hearing until the next
Yeah.
public hearing date, and we'll get in contact with the applicant, because there were some emails going back and forth about
This is about
the violations, alleged violations.
Oh, yeah, definitely put this one over.
All right.
There's-
All right, so, John, should I make a motion to put it over? or
Yes,
just- okay.
please, yeah.
All right, because the applicant is not here, and there's been some confusion about potential violations and whether to go forward or not, I make a motion that we keep the public hearing open and put it over to the next public hearing date of July 17th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right. All right. I know I'm going to mispronounce this. Mr.
Yusuchi.
Thank you.
That's
I
not
was
me.
hoping you'd save me.
That's not me, but that's the last name.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your help. All right. Is there anybody here on this application? Can you say it again?
Iwasuchin.
Iwasuchin? Okay. So please tell the board what the application is about. We know, but for the record.
Mr. Iwasuchin has purchased this property off of 308. It contains a current main house and the other living structure is a cottage connected to the main barn on the property. And Mr. Iwasuchin's desire is to move the main residence into the historic barn structure and thus make that the primary residence there, and the existing house, main house, become accessory to it. And it's also the fact that the accessory structure would be greater than 1,000 square feet during that change.
For the record, are you Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I'm Paul Timmons, the engineer working with Mr. Iwasuchin for the site plan, building permit work, and anything to do with the health department. Mr. Iwasuchin is in Czechoslovakia.
Is this before the planning board?
Yes, it is.
Can you give us an update on where it is?
We have had one meeting, and then we moved to public hearing. That was the last meeting 2 weeks ago. That was the Monday, Monday, June 7th, I believe. And we're going through the process. I think we're ready for final site plan submission, as the main thing we're waiting on is some sign off on the health department on septic system usage. And we have just resolved that this week.
If this was granted and it was completed, the barn would be the house, and the cottage would be the accessory structure, would be in front of the barn.
The barn is the closest structure to Route 308. So right now, the main house is behind the accessory structure.
Oh, okay. The barn is closer to 308.
Correct. Yeah, if you drive down 308, well, maybe now, not with the leaves, but when the leaves are off the trees, you see the
Very
big
good. Thank you.
barn.
These are great plans, but is there a site plan as well? These are for the structures.
Yes, there are site plans.
Okay, so.
No, they're 11 by 17 folded in half.
Yeah, I didn't see those.
Yeah, the back of this.
It was from last month.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at today's.
With regard to the cottage, what's the intention of use for that?
Well, currently, Mr. Yasuchin brought the property, we call him Jerry, it's easier.
I agree.
He bought the property, I believe, last year, 2018. And we bought the property, the previous owner was living in the main house, and he had renters in the cottage that's connected to the barn. Jerry's wishes to move the main house to the barn. Him and his wife have older children and younger children between them, and they hope to use the main house as for, I think he has a daughter that's graduating college soon, and, you know, maybe use it for her to live in. That's my understanding. But there was 2 residences being used previously on this property. He will keep, the barn will be a 3-bedroom barn equal to the cottage that is connected to the barn, as he's turning the barn into a kind of like a workout recreation room with some sauna and some other things to help him through his old age.
Again, anyone from the public here on this? Okay. Questions, concerns? Richard, did you have the same?
Yeah, the same, thank you. The same concern for the board concerning Airbnb, but as I stated earlier, I myself don't have that question, but other board members might. Meaning, what was the primary structure of the cottage now becomes an empty unit, albeit for family members, but family members could move, or the property could be sold. But again, I would leave it up to the town of Rhinebeck to regulate and enforce Airbnb, not myself.
Either way, there's 2 residents on the property, whether you call one accessory, one primary, but there was 2 residents before, and that will remain the same.
Richard, I'm not quite clear. Do we need to cover that on each project?
Because that's what I'm trying to avoid. Because
Okay.
then we'll have to do it on many of our applicants.
Right, so I'm not quite sure why we need to raise it if the town.
We raised it once before, and I just
Okay.
hope in the future we don't.
I have a clarification question that, John, I think is for you. Under the town code, if you have an accessory dwelling, you can rent it, you can use it for family. There's no restrictions in terms of use as long as it's a dwelling.
I think you have to live, I think you have to be living in the primary residence.
You have to live in the primary residence. But then the accessory dwelling is just that, you can use it as you want.
Well, you know, we brought up the idea of short-term rental is not really an allowed, it's not an allowed use in Rhinebeck right now.
Right.
So you could rent, a long-term rental has traditionally been allowed.
But that's where I was going.
Yep.
It was just whether you use it for family or whether you have a long-term rental, both those uses are allowed.
Yes, as long as the primary
As long as you're
structure
living in
is
the primary residence.
occupied
You
as a
couldn't-
residence.
You couldn't rent both of them out.
I think there's a requirement that you have to live on.
Yes.
Including one of the premises. We've had that before.
Yes.
Okay.
Or one of the structures.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it's not residential anymore
If both
if both
properties.
units are being rented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul, we probably will schedule a site visit, so if Chris has your contact, we'll contact you to.
Okay, I believe you have Jerry's, if not, if you have his email address, because he's actually retired and lives in the
We'll
house on the
contact him
property now.
directly. Good.
And I believe he's coming back sometime around this weekend, so.
Okay, good.
So he's shown it to the historians, to the several planning board members, so he enjoyed to show you around the property.
Very good, thank you.
And Richard, maybe you can coordinate, go out this weekend or something.
Good.
Maybe Saturday, something like that? Does that sound?
Yeah, I would check with him, his email. He has been responding back to me, email on different issues. I'm not sure exact day he flies home. His wife and 2 kids do live in that house in the back, but I think he's really the best one to deal with and show you
You
around.
think he'll be back this Saturday? You don't know?
I don't
Following
know.
Saturday?
Yes, he would be back on the following
I'm
Saturday.
going to shoot for the following Saturday around 10 a.m.
Okay, well, we can
We'll
take care
send
of
an
that.
email out to everyone.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, concerns, Chris or Kim?
So you mentioned that the planning board just had their public hearing. They haven't issued a decision on their environmental review, issue a determination of significance?
I believe they, trying to think the letter I got. I don't know if they've done it or not.
Okay, maybe we can.
Well, I think we have,
we,
if we don't know, they're lead agency on this, right?
Correct, that's what I was just gonna say, we can't make a final decision until we have
Right.
that.
And if we close the public hearing, we're gonna,
It starts
Starts
the
the clock.
62-day period,
Yep.
but if we need more time, we could always ask the applicant if they'd be willing to. So once we close the public hearing, it starts a 62-day for the ZBA to issue a decision. We cannot issue a decision until the planning board makes their environmental review.
I believe they have.
And we can check that, we can.
If you
talk
check
to
it, I
the
believe
secretary. But-
that has been made.
But anyway, if we were to need additional time for that 62-day period, would you and Jerry be able to grant that to us?
I'm sure Jerry doesn't want it, but I'm sure he would grant it.
Okay.
No, we need that
He's trying
assurance.
to get some of the building work started and the barn renovation, because in a sense, he is saving this 250-year-old barn, because if it wasn't used as a resident and him redoing the structure there, it wouldn't last more than a few more years, so.
We're obviously.
He does want
we'd
to
like
start that this year.
We'd like to move
do
along
it,
too,
but
but,
it's just logistic purposes.
yeah,
that's-
we need that
Oh,
assurance
the
so
law says.
we can close the hearing.
Okay.
So
I
you
have no
assurance that you'll
objection
grant us
personally.
additional time if we need it, a reasonable amount of time.
I would, sure he would. He's an easy
Ken,
man.
is that?
Yeah, I think, but like John said, it's legally required, and
Right.
if it is possible that the planning board has issued a permission, we have to check.
All right, do you feel comfortable with us closing with that assurance?
What do you think, John?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I've heard enough. Any more questions, concerns? No? Okay, at this time, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing with the understanding that if we do need additional time to get information from the planning board, that the applicant will grant it. Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. The last is Hudson Valley Rhinebeck. And is there anybody here on Hudson Valley Rhinebeck? Come on up. Do we have neighbors on this? Okay. So you've kind of seen what happened before, and again, I apologize for us being so late, but there's been some interesting applications. So the applicant will tell you what's being proposed, and if you want to come up, please come up and state your name, your address, whatever questions, concerns you have, or whatever statement you want to make, okay? All right, take it away.
Hello, my name is Patrick Logan. I'm an attorney with Regan Shaw here in the village of Rhinebeck. We've presented this application to the board a number of times before, but a brief summary for the public as well. Hudson Valley Rhinebeck owns a 136-acre property at the Rock Ledge Historic Site. They're proposing a residential set of uses on that property. That would have a total of 36 dwelling units located in various multifamily dwellings throughout the property. This application is currently pending before the planning board, seeking site plan special use and subdivision approval. The application before the ZBA is on the very limited issue regarding allocation of those dwelling units among two different buildings. Now, the adaptive reuse portion of the town zoning law states that you can get up to 4 dwelling units in an adaptively reused historic building. There are 2 such buildings on the site, and we originally proposed to put 4 dwelling units in each before the planning board. Upon hearing from the planning board and members of the public that they didn't want, they wanted to minimize development and additions on those structures, we decided to ask the ZBA to allow us to instead of putting 4 and 4 in the 2 structures, put 6 in the larger structure and 2 in the smaller structure. This would reduce the overall amount of construction on the site. That's a general overview of the issue before the ZBA. Just for your edification, this is still pending before the planning board. There has not been a secret determination yet. And to the extent that any of the issues concern SECRA and the subdivision and special use issues, we believe that those are best determined by the planning board, and those will be determined before you end up making your decision on whether or not to issue a variance. So that's my summation, unless you or the public has questions.
No, a bunch of us, I think all of us actually went to the site visit, so that was helpful. Public, anybody want to come up and be heard on this application? If so, please come up, state your name, your address, your questions, concerns, comments.
I'm Kara Kewell. I live with my partner John Hughes at 467 Ackerd Hook Road, which is directly opposite the Rockledge property. And I wish I was feeling like more of an expert tonight after 6 or 7 years of this process and the arguments that have been raised. A lot of this is kicked off by a letter which I believe you received recently from Wayne Thompson. Did you all receive that letter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So I found myself after reading this letter feeling like, after all the time that's passed with this situation, that I had been lulled into this false sense of 36 new homes on Ackerd Hook Road was a good, compromise. Having looked at this letter, I call that into question. It's long been my point of view that it's too many properties, too many new houses in the neighborhood, and it really is what triggers the discussion of all the main issues that keep coming up, and that is traffic on Ackerd Hook Road, water from the aquifer, and the wastewater treatment plant. So reducing the number of homes would go some way anyway to addressing all the major concerns that keep coming up. In addition, I think that the most salient point that's raised here, and this is where I'm going with this, is I think we're putting the cart before the horse to be talking about whether or not they can have 4 units in one or 6 units in one and 2 in another. I mean, I think that I think that the appropriate density for the property really needs to be resolved before the allocation of where it is on the property is concluded. And I think one of the key things that needs to be looked at is the current subdivision application that they have in place. In the beginning, they had a very grand plan, and it sort of made sense to separate what they were going to have as a very commercial hotel kind of entity separate from the housing. Now that it's all residential, the only real reason to subdivide the properties is to maximize the number of homes on the property, which is exactly what we don't want and don't agree are appropriate for the property. So I think that we need to take the time to examine really what was envisioned by the comprehensive plan. I get that having one house on every 5 acres is not is something that they wanted to have an incentive for consolidating homes to leave more open space. But I think what it's led to instead is this sort of de facto policy of allowing 4 homes on every 5 acres, which doesn't make sense when you really think about it. So I think that we're premature in discussing how many units go in what existing building, and I think we really need to look at the density on the property overall and the purpose and the pros and cons of the gerrymandering right now, which also Thompson raises some really interesting points about what is envisioned for historic property in terms of preserving something that is in its whole designated historic, when this subdivision really pulls it all apart into 3 separate entities that could very easily end up in separate hands and subject to different types of treatment. So I wanted to share that with you tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public, from the public, would like to comment? Come on up. Again, please state your name and your address and give your comments.
My name is Matthew McGuire. I live at the corner of Ackert Hook and Kipsburger Drive with my wife, Susan Matzakowski. We're relative newcomers to Rhinebeck. We moved in 2015. You may know our property just before Ackert Hook reaches Vilay. There's a culvert which crosses Fallsburg Creek, and there's an old barn there, 1900. It says in the lease. I think it's older. It has a feel along that creek of why we moved here, that the community has a rural feel. And that's what I understand from previous meetings about zoning here, is that it's the mission of the zoning board to try to keep a rural feeling in Rhinebeck. So the idea of a 36 new families up the road on Ackert Hook seems absurd to me in view of the vision of the zoning board. Recently getting a car repaired at M&M Automotive, had to walk down from where we live to M&M Automotive. Beautiful walk down Ackert Hook Road. Windy, one of the most winding roads I've ever been on. I can't imagine how that road is going to sustain the increase in traffic. Thompson's letter is also persuasive in that the landmark designation, the Manor house is gorgeous up the road, but as soon as it's got a neighborhood of all those buildings and families living there and the traffic, the landmark feel of that property will be lost. So I feel very strongly that this application ought to be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If I may respond.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you for your comments. I just wanted to reiterate that these issues of traffic and impact are, I believe, best before the planning board during its subdivision review.
Why are we here?
They're here for a variance, right? They're allowed to have 4 units in a building. They want to go from 4 and 4 to 2 and 6, and have 6 in the big manor house.
And on that point, I just wanted to reiterate that the question of with regard to this variance, there would be no change in the number of dwelling units. It would still be 8, no matter what. So, concerns about impact theoretically wouldn't change if this variance were granted.
Thank you. Come on up, please.
Well, this is just a question for you.
Okay, but if you could, yeah. Get you on the record. You're on TV.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Susan Matzakowski, and we've just heard from my husband. My question to this gentleman, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, is what is the purpose of the manor house? What is the historical significance of this landmark building? And why is it being allowed to be turned into a residence?
Well, historically, the manor house was, as it's described, it was a large manor estate developed in the early 1900s, I believe. But over the years, it's actually had a number of different uses. It's been a novitiate, and at one point, I believe, a drug rehabilitation center. The fact that it's historic does not necessarily limit the uses that can be put to the property. And moreover, the town's adaptive reuse provisions are there to incentivize developers to be able to keep and actually get some sort of productive use out of these old buildings that they otherwise might not be able to. To that point, my apologies, the architect was not able to attend this evening. To that point, the plans for the manor house and for the stone barn structure, that is the other building, are designed to reduce the changes to the exterior to the greatest extent possible. If we were to locate 4 dwelling units in the stone barn, there would end up being a addition put onto that barn that is much larger than what would be put on if we got this variance and were able to put those 2 dwelling units that would have been in the barn in the manor house instead. The changes to the manor house are going to be almost entirely on the interior. So the exterior architecture would be preserved. I believe the other gentleman.
Come on up, please.
Hi, my name is John Hughes. I'm Kara's partner. I live at 467 Ackerd Hook Road. I think I have a slight opposition to this request for variance, and it's essentially the following. This is a variance that, unlike almost anything else we've heard, or that I've heard tonight, isn't de minimis, it isn't about hardship. This is fundamentally an economic request. They have a right to put 4 units in one building. They have a right to put 4 units in another building. I'm not trying to be slow. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm clear with you. It will be evidently cheaper to build 6 units. They will still be impacting the neighborhood by putting on an addition to what we call the stone barn, or what has been called the chapter, or what have you. It's just going to be smaller. He's already said all the work's going to be done on the inside. So to me, and I don't know how you folks determine what variances are allowed and what they aren't allowed. In his shoes, I would make the same argument. I'd say, look, it's all my property. Why does this matter? To me, it matters because the town determined that you're allowed to put 4 units in. Whatever those sizes are, they are. You can put in 4. They're going to reap an economic benefit by putting 6 into that. Even though they say the units are the same number, it's going to cost them less. They're going to have to go through a lot less in terms of where are they in terms of wetlands, how close are they to the septic facility that they have, do they have to worry about that? So from a visual standpoint, I much prefer having all the units in the manor house, because I live across the street. But from being realistic, I think there is a question as to what the fundamental purpose of this. This is a business. This isn't a resident coming in and saying, hey, I'm 2 feet short, or I'm closer to the lot line than I should be, but I'll work it out with my neighbor. This is now an historic property that's been carved up to maximize profit. And all of the elements that began this process in terms of adaptive reuse went from being the headline to a footnote. We can do it because it's an adaptive reuse. And I just stress to you that that is a concern to me. We're not here, and I don't think you're here, to ensure the profitability of a third-party business. That's my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, come on up. Actually, we have 2 folks.
If I just coach him, we can do one.
You can come up together if you want.
Gabrielle Conway, Ackerd Hook Road. I want to know how big the parcel is that those 2 buildings are on.
Oh, Sure. Again, my apologies, our large maps aren't here. Actually, I can show you
You can just tell me how many acres that parcel is that those two buildings are on?
there are going to, assuming that the planning board decides to approve the subdivision, there would be 3 parcels total.
But we're talking about one parcel when you're saying we're not adding density. One parcel has maximum of 4 allowed.
There would be 2 parcels that each have 1 building on them, and those would each be roughly 5 acres, a little over 5 acres.
So we haven't been approved yet, and we're here to appeal the approval or disapproval?
I imagine you're here
No, this is
to talk to the
separate
board.
issue.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So there are 2 separate parcels, but you're acting as their one. We're just going to slide these units over to here?
There are 2 parcels, each of which has 1 building. We're allowed to put 4 in each building.
So we're pretending they're one for the
And
purpose of sliding extras over?
What we're doing is asking them for permission to go from 4 and 4 to 2 and 6.
My opinion is no way.
If I could just comment, we had a balancing test with all our applications, and the impact on the neighborhood is one of those. So we members have to take into account the historic area, the barn that was alluded to. If I voted to deny this, my fear would be that the applicant would say, okay, I'm not going to do 4 and 4. I'm sorry, 2 and 6, which are not going to touch the exterior. I'll do 4 and 4, which means you're going to look at an old building with a new addition. I don't care what products they use, faux stone or...
The new products might be more ecologically sound.
You know...
It might be better for us.
I just think you can't replicate an old stone building. And that's part of the balancing test of the impact on the neighborhood. Because that's very visual. Those 2 buildings are very visual.
You really wouldn't see it if you're dodging traffic.
Well, I'm just saying, I moved to Rhinebeck also because of the historical nature of it, and I built stone walls. I love stones, and I love going to that property. It was beautiful. But as far as our application goes, we're talking about those 2 buildings. Is it going to be, 2 and 6 or 4 and 4? If we deny this, they may go to 4 and 4, which means they're going to put a new addition on that stone.
A bigger
building.
one.
A big one, yeah. I'm just relating that to you, that's all.
Well, we could see the drawings and what they submit.
Thank you. Come on up.
So 3 points, actually, what John wanted to say. There's still an addition proposed to the chapel building, albeit a smaller one. I will point out that much to my chagrin, not too far behind the chapel is a wastewater treatment plant. So that versus a very smart-looking extension on the back of the chapel is, to me, not a big issue. I mean, I'd love it if they'd come in and take the wastewater treatment plant away. That would be a visual improvement to the property. I did want to ask, actually, is the 4 units per building permitted based on the 5 acres, or is it based on the adaptive reuse, or a combination of the 2, just for clarity?
The adaptive reuse provision, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the adaptive reuse provisions provide an incentive for the reuse of buildings, and the law, I believe, just says you can get up to 4 per building on a lot.
I think that's correct.
Regardless of the number of acres?
I think it has to be 5 acres.
It would generally be 5, but that actual sentence doesn't have an acreage.
It's in the RC5.
It's in the RC5 though,
So
which
that's
is why
what
we
it's-
defined
the
it
zone
to be that
is
size.
required minimum 5 acres.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know whether
Yep.
there was, those could stand on their own.
Come on up. Again, please state your name, your address, and your concerns.
I'm Kieran Conway, 584 Aqueduct Road. Did the board make it out to do a site visit?
Yes.
Okay, so when you walk in, you saw the big dorm building on the right, which is a modern building,
Yes.
right? Framed, which has bedrooms and bathrooms for How many people used to live in that?
Oh, sorry.
How many people used to live in that dorm building?
I don't know off the top of my head.
So that building, the architect and the attorney told me it was going to be used to store lawnmowers. Seemed kind of big, right, for lawnmowers, isn't it? What do you think?
But that was the representation, that it was going to be used for storage, and they would keep equipment in and things like that.
It's maybe 7,000 or 8,000 feet with like a lot of bathrooms and bedrooms and kitchens and stuff.
That's just a representation, and that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, but
That would be something that would be before the planning board. We're here simply to either grant or deny the application to move those 2 units to the main building.
Yeah. Would your decision be based on the drawings that was shown for the 6 units in the main building? Did you show drawings for that?
Yes. We have drawings, yes.
So there was no elevator in that, there was no handicap accessibility or anything in that, right?
We asked the question and the answer was no.
So that would be illegal, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's illegal to have handicap access for 3rd floor residential. So them drawings weren't really accurate.
But again, that's not our purview. Ours is simply to determine whether it makes sense for them to move the 2 units to the main building and have 6 and 2 instead of 4 and 4, which they're allowed to do 4 and 4.
Yeah. It just seems that the application isn't very genuine if a lot of information seems to be kind of wrong or not accurate, you know?
Well, again, I would say to you that from our perspective, what we need in order to consider this application, we have.
Yeah.
Now, the planning board has much more on its plate than we do, and the application they have is probably much more extensive. And maybe that's where you're getting your information from.
Should they have waited until the planning board was finished before they went to you guys?
Not necessarily. Many times we grant variances or deny variances before the planning board has finished their work. Sometimes they wait for us.
Okay, thank you.
And the planning board is doing their environmental review, so we're waiting for the planning board to issue their environmental review before the ZBA can issue their decision. So there is a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the planning board nothing has been, they didn't get the special use permit, nothing has been approved yet, right?
Yeah, we're waiting for the environmental review to be completed by the planning board.
And then the other things will be reviewed after that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the public hearing is still open.
I believe it is.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
You are certain you have the legal authority tonight to make a decision on this? Okay.
This is just a public hearing.
Okay.
We cannot make it, we have to wait. The planning board is also reviewing this application. They're doing their environmental review, which is still pending. We cannot act until we have their decision.
Even on this variance?
Correct.
Correct. We're kind of handcuffed until they complete their environmental review.
I'm just a little confused. I feel like we're here like every session, either Monday or Wednesday.
Well, we do different things.
Yeah.
Planning board and the zoning board do
Yeah.
different things.
I just wish they completed something, an application, and legitimate one, and put it through when they were ready.
Well,
But
I'm sure they're working very hard and being very thorough. It's a big
that
project.
would be nice.
Any other neighbors or interested parties who would like to come up and voice their concerns or have questions?
Yes, just
Come on up.
one very brief thought. I'm sorry that I seem to be slightly off point because I do know we're just speaking about a variance. Whether the project goes from 4 and 4 to 2 and 6 goes to the question of numbers of units. And the overall picture of Rhinebeck, looking at the gardens currently has 28 units for sale. So what happens if this project fails? What happens if there's no market for people that want to live up on Ackerhook Road in a tight community of 36 homes? That's it doesn't seem like a good idea for me financially. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Board members? So we're going to keep the public hearing open, waiting for the planning board.
Yes.
I think that makes
I think
prudent.
that indication has been made.
Well, I did have you know, I did speak to Michael on another issue today, Michael Trimble from the planning board, and I did ask about the progress with this application, and he had mentioned that the next public hearing will be on August 5th, per the request of the applicant. But, you know, if the board has any thoughts on what their opinion is on this, you know, not a decision, but just what their general thought is, it might be helpful for the planning board in making their own determination on this, just to kind of understand where the ZBA, what their thoughts are on this, on the variance application.
Right. But I guess what I'm getting at is we can't close the hearing because that'll handcuff us. We have the 62 days will start, and we still need to get the environmental determination from the planning board, so.
Right, but you can, yes,
but we can
yes,
still-
you can still voice some of your opinions, the public hearing will remain open.
Yep. Okay. All right, so because we're waiting for some information from the planning board, I make the application that we continue the public hearing and that we keep it open and have it on for July 17th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So,
Or should we put it up?
well, I was just going
You're
to
taking
say,
it over
I
until
don't
August?
know whether
Yeah, there might want to
any
be.
action is going to take place at the planning board before August 5th.
So they're not bringing it up at their next meeting?
Yeah, I guess the engineer, Mark, what would you like to do?
No, I think you're just as informed as I am. Mark, I believe, requested that in order to have ample opportunity to respond to all the concerns that have been brought up.
So this won't be on a planning board agenda again until
Right, okay,
August
so
5th.
maybe, all right, so maybe I should make the motion that we continue to the August meeting.
Yes.
Do you know when that is?
No.
If I may.
Yeah, for us, yeah. Yeah, because they're gonna be having this on, what you said, August 4th?
5th.
Fifth?
It's August 15th.
August 15th? Is that the third Wednesday?
That's actually the,
Actually, Chair, if it's not going to inconvenience anyone, would it be possible to perhaps keep it open on July, just in case we wished to come before you and speak? I mean,
I don't have a quarrel with that. I mean, and especially if you folks want to come
Scott,
to
the
this
only
one.
thing is,
I just think
they're gonna come
we're
back,
asking
and
those
then
people to
we're
come
gonna ask
back
them to come back again.
again and again and again.
that's what a public hearing is.
I mean, it's
though.
kept open,
Yeah.
they don't have to come back if they feel that they've been represented, you know, represented opinions, but,
Well,
I mean,
let's,
it
let's
can be
let's step
open.
back. I mean, really, the reason we're keeping this open, we've got all the information we need pretty much, but we're waiting for the planning board to make the determination. We won't have that in July.
I think there was a question raised by Mr. Logan, if
I mean, I
he
imagine
hasn't
that.
been
Well,
informed.
the public hearing doesn't have to be open for the applicant to come in and give information. The applicant has a legal right to be able to submit information in rebuttal to any information that's taken in by the board at the public hearing. So, and the applicant, I'm presuming that you're going to be willing to extend the board's 62-day time to issue a decision to whatever needs to happen to accommodate the seeker.
I would imagine.
Yes, I mean,
I
otherwise.
think we mentioned
Yeah.
this to Mr. Rodenhausen when he was here first, because
So
we
you're
knew
saying
that.
closing with the understanding that they'll extend their time if we need it, kind of thing?
I thought we did that at the last meeting, but I don't have my notes in front of me.
No, well, this is the first public hearing, I think,
Yes, I know, but we talked about meshing seeker with, you know, as we always do, when the planning board is the lead agency.
How about keeping it open to the July meeting, but putting it first on so that if there are a lot of folks here, they can all leave quickly if there's just a few questions.
Sorry, how about we just adjourn to August and there may be.
There we go,
submissions.
great.
There we go.
We convinced
We
you.
circle back. All right. 10 after 10, I think we just bore you out. All right, so it's the 21st? All right, so I make a motion that we adjourn this until August 21st. Do I have a second? Second. All right, all in favor? Aye? All right.
And does the ZBA have any thoughts on this?
Not tonight, you know.
Thinking about going home.
Please, Joe.
Well,
I
I'll go through our.
You've got a
Is there anything that we really need to go into?
I just have to get home.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to do any issues, other issues, or just will adjourn for the night? Okay. Okay, all right, gang, I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
A lot of seconds. Everyone's second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Panda.